But up, ba. Brandon, we're back online, streaming worldwide. It's the only everything Teams phone show,
You
everything
can't,
Teams phone live. Woo,
you can't even, can't
woo.
even
That took a
remember
while
what
to
we call it.
that,
Must be all
that took
the
a while.
must be all,
We've been so busy lately.
yeah, it must be all the travel fatigue that's catching up to us on this that we can't even remember what our show is.
It It is the travel fatigue, but that's all right. It's been busy, but it's been fun. There's lots of stuff going on in the Microsoft Teams ecosystem, Brandon. There is some cool updates coming out. We were all in a discussion yesterday or day before yesterday, operator days. And I think one of the takeaways on the Q apps, actually, it was a fireside chat yesterday, I think. Big talk about the Qs app coming in around August. I think it was a bit of a move from June to August, but the Qs app was a big discussion point. Obviously, shared calling continues to be something that people talk about, but really hasn't been shown, in the organization. Some organizations are deploying it. I think there's only 7 of us that provide shared calling. Momentum, we do shared calling. So if you have questions about shared calling, give us a message, DM us. Anyway, there's a little plug for Momentum, but let's get past all that good stuff because I really want to talk about some of the cool little nuances that are happening right now where Microsoft is kind of reaching back, looking to kind of fill the gaps in some of the things that, kind of older phone systems do. And they're really filling the gaps nicely. Some of the things they're not going to do because some of the things are just legacy features, right? That aren't really needed from a business process perspective. So some things are not, but one of the things that was really interesting is the call detail record insight. Before I get deeper into that, so we'll keep me honest. We'll circle back to that call detail record insight. But what the other thing that was pretty cool was obviously the Copilot transcription translation. That's pretty interesting. So if I go from filling gaps on call detail records to net new, what's the business process that we're filling in, and the live transcription of translation, I think is really interesting. Seems to break down barriers for those that serve the community, for those that serve different regions, different parts of the world. It gives you an opportunity to chat. And what I mean by that is, Brandon, why don't you explain what that is? It's chat, the transcription translation. Why don't you
Yeah,
explain that?
yeah, and we can probably go into maybe demonstrating it a little bit if I can get someone to message me something in a different language. But um, one of the features that's coming, and I'll just say some of this is public preview, so it may not be readily available for just your standard commercial. But if you're part of public preview, then you can get access to some of this stuff. One of which is this inline chat, automatic translation of language in chat. So the example would be, if I'm chatting with a coworker who happens to sit in another country and they speak, really could be any of the supported languages, could be Chinese, could be Filipino, could be um, Spanish, could be make up the language, Portuguese. And what happens is they're typing the message in their native tongue. So let's just say it's Spanish. They have the ability now to stay in their native tongue, their native language. They can type it out in Spanish. They can hit send, and when I receive that message into my client, there is an automatic translation feature that flips it to my preferred language. So it takes that Spanish message, detects I want it in English, automatically translates it, and posts it into my chat window in English. I have the ability to view it back in Spanish if I want to cross reference that. But the use case there is, there's situations where maybe someone's struggling to explain something in English because for me, I'm an English speaker natively. Maybe my coworker is not, and I'm not quite understanding what he's saying. I could potentially say, hey, if this is easier for you to explain to me in your native tongue, in this case, maybe Spanish, go ahead and explain it to me in Spanish. And I can then receive that message, and Microsoft can do the work to translate that. And that may, in some cases, may help me understand things better. In some cases, translation maybe isn't perfect, so it might confuse me more. But it's a really cool feature to allow, multilingual companies to talk to each other and not have to worry about the language barrier.
Let me give you a real world, because I had a discussion yesterday with a healthcare organization, and this was really, we started talking about this because obviously we just ran through this and just tested it out, and so it was specific to them, interesting to them, because they support low income, low income, and what was it? Kind of like welfare case for children. So they support children, right? They're sometimes they get called to a jail if maybe some parents have been put away and the kids left their, protective services, hospitals that may have, so if you think about that scenario, and we support tons of lifelines, right? Like life support lines. We support tons of emergency sort of service help desks and helplines, suicide hotlines. That's what I was looking for. We support lots of those hotlines, right? And so what's interesting is that when I mentioned this is a way for them to communicate in real time. And we did get a question on LinkedIn. Thank you, Catherine. It is in real time translation. It is real time, and we'll show an example of this in just a minute. So for them, it was a way for them to put this out online, or put this out there, communicate with the community, and have anyone in their organization take that call or take that sort of chat now, right? It was not. It's not, they don't have to wait and route to a Spanish user, as an example, if it's a Spanish speaker, and maybe they've got someone who speaks Spanish only. They can communicate with them now, at least using chat, in real time, in a ton of languages, or a multitude of languages. And Brandon, you could be there, English speaker in Denver, Colorado, right? And you can help anyone in areas that need help, or demographics that need help, different speaking languages or different languages. So I think it's pretty interesting. Why don't we do this? Couple of things that we want to show here today. It is the call detail record insight. Brandon, I'll give you the choice. What do you think? What do you want to show first? Because you're the one that's set up for stuff.
Yeah, we're going to stay on topic. So before we move and change topics, let's try to do this demo with the real-time translation in a chat feed. So I'm going to share my screen here. Let's see. Let's go here. Throw it up on the screen. And I'm going to go through the settings first of, kind of where we set this up. I'm going to go into, this is the Teams desktop client. So I'm going to go into my settings next to my profile picture, and I'm going to go over to appearance and accessibility. And now, again, remember, some of this is public preview. So if you don't see it, then it means it's public preview. And if you want to test it, obviously you'd need to check with your corporate policies to see if you're allowed to access the public preview stuff. But down under, as you look under appearance and accessibility, and you come look under the language section, you can see I've set my preferred language to English. And then there's some translation options of how I want to handle messages as they come into me. So I'm saying I want to translate messages into English. How do I want to translate it? I have a couple options. I can have it ask me before translating. I can have it auto translate the message. That means when it comes in, it's just going to automatically detect and translate. That's what we're going to demonstrate. Or I can never translate, which means I'm going to get that message in the native tongue, and then I'm going to have to manually, figure out how to translate that. So we're going to do auto translate. And then I have set to never translate. You can set specific languages. So, imagine a bilingual person is probably going to want to not translate the English and Spanish if they're bilingual and they're comfortable reading in both languages. In my case, I'm just going to demonstrate English as the one that's never going to translate. So that's as my user. I'm going to switch over to another user. I'm going to act as if my name is Matt Leroy for a second. And I've never used this language, so I guess a live demo is we're going to risk it. We're going to see if this will work. We're going to pretend that Matt Leroy speaks German, just because German is what I chose in Google Translate. And I'm going to paste in a message. And I don't even, I'm not fluent in German, so I can't even read what that says. And we're going to send this over to my user who has auto translation turned on. So let's send that over. And let's pop back to that user. It doesn't look like it's going to do it because this is a demo.
Brandon, is your screen expanded as much as possible?
It is. My resolution is really high. So it's probably why it's really small.
Okay, got it. Yeah.
There, I'll have to check something. It did translate it, but I had to ask it to translate, so maybe my setting did not stick. But there, it did translate to English. I'll double check that. I don't want to sit on this call and do it because it could take a couple minutes and a couple tries to do it. But in a working perfect world, this message would come in automatically translated. Rick, I know you had sent me a message the other day in Spanish. We could try that if you could just type up a quick Spanish message. Let me be as you do that,
let me I am going to use Google Translate for that.
Yeah, we'll see. I should. I'm sure German is supported. It maybe just didn't take my setting, or again, being public preview, maybe it's not. Oh, I'm not on public preview. That's why I didn't do it. Okay, now it'll. But go ahead and send a message when you have it.
Okay, see what?
It should come from Rick.
Yep, stand by. Let me go and I didn't have my Teams open for this, but let me go and do that for you. I know.
I think I also have another user open on another screen that I can use if that's quicker. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and do that as well, just so we can see the
I've got it right here. Let's see here. Give 1 second.
I put you on the spot for once.
When I paste it pastes it in the box. Well, yeah. It put it in the box, and I know that it doesn't work in the box, so it's like I have to take it out of this box thing. Hold on 1 second here. All right. All right, Brandon. Is this over to the demo account?
Yeah, over to demo.
Just to make sure I got the account right, Brandon. The demo account. Okay.
Demo.
All right. Okay, there you go.
All right, so there's the message. It came in from Rick Garcia saying, "Hello, how can you help me? I need support for my headache." And you can see there's an indicator. I know this is really small on my screen, but there's an indicator that translated automatically. I do have the option to see the original in Spanish, just to demonstrate that.
Send me something back.
That I did receive that. You will not get translation because you're not on public preview. I cannot help you.
That's right.
But that would be in English. And obviously, if the speaker on the other side spoke Spanish and they had their computer set up to auto translate, that would translate it back into Spanish if that was their native language.
Hold on a second.
Looks like
Giving you another one. Let's just continue on this line.
We can see Rick's typing. That came in a like a copy.
I did it in the box. Yep, hold on. Yep, hold on a second. Boom, there we go.
Who can help me? My arm hurts. I've broken it. Again, I can see the original language if I need to. So anyway, as you can see, obviously there's some use cases, right? I'm actually currently working with a customer today who has a huge interest in this because they have global presence across multiple countries. And a lot of times sometimes what happens is I might be working in an office, say in Germany with my colleagues, and we're used to speaking in German with each other. And then I flip over and I go to talk to you, Rick, and you're in the office in US, and I forget to switch to English just because I'm in the habit of using German. It just adds efficiency. I no longer have to either A, manually go figure out how to translate that, or B, go back to my coworker and say, in English, please. It just makes the modern work flow that much more efficient. Are you sending another message to
like
me?
I said, that's it's interesting for healthcare, interesting for no, I'm no longer sending message. Interesting for social justice type things or social sort of social services. I think those use cases are going to be really interesting. It'd be interesting if, as you can see, the evolution of this real time transcription translation. It'd be interesting to see if at some point Microsoft does the real live audio translation, right? So not transcription as well, but if there's an AI voice that then speaks Spanish back, for instance, on a phone call, that would be interesting. It'd be interesting because some organizations, healthcare organizations, again, the social services, et cetera, use a third party translation service where they have to patch somebody in, bring somebody to the call if they've got a Spanish speaker online. So that happens quite a bit. School districts, healthcare organizations, social services organizations, they all use that. So if you think about government, and we've got some friends at Microsoft in the government space, I think that's going to be a really interesting sort of key development. Again, the transcription translation to me is amazing because you can build. You and I know we're building this now. You can build chat bots, and you can build click to chat, click to call, and you can create, Brandon, with Power Automate, workflows that take it from a single to many, right? In fact, do you have anything set up, Brandon, that shows single to many or notifications via Power Automate of some services? So I can see a point where, again, you've got a chat bot on your website, or you send a link out for someone specific that you're chatting with into a private sort of session, and you have a one-to-one private session with someone, on their mobile device, right on using WebRTC to communicate via chat in different languages. Like this is pretty amazing to be able to utilize this in enterprises. Essentially now, right? Microsoft provides the platform and the tools to start to create these solutions now. Pretty cool stuff.
Yeah, and I think there's.
Did we finish that one off, Brandon?
Yeah, and I was going to pivot into kind of the same topic, but talking about the feature that's also coming to voicemail transcription. So today, and for as long as as we can remember, Teams Phone has done voicemail transcription, right? That's not a new thing. So you call me, you leave a voicemail, it transcribes it and lets me read your voicemail. Now what Microsoft is doing is they're taking that transcription and they're translating it so that, again, someone can call in and leave a message in some language, and once that post processes, I, as the user or the recipient of that voicemail, I now get that transcription with the translation. So I'll pop over to my voicemail tab just to show that I've got a voicemail here. And again, I know this is really small, probably to the viewer, but you can see that this voicemail was left in, happens to be traditional Chinese. And if we're to listen to this, it would be Chinese. The speaker is speaking to me, leaving the message in Chinese. So at this point, I, as an English speaker that does not speak or read Chinese, I have no idea what this message is telling me. But what we can do, and my audio might break up here for a second while I open up my email. Um, I can turn on translation services for voicemail, so that when Microsoft processes that, it sends me the voicemail to my, the transcription to my email, it's going to translate it as well. So let me pull up that. I'm going to go try to get this here. Here we go. Almost there. I'm going to pull this over onto the screen. It's a kind of a dark color, but this is the email copy of that voicemail that I was showing you that was on my phone system. And you can see the original transcription, which is in Chinese, gives me the inkly deduce what that person is calling and leaving a message for, without having to go through some manual translation process or needing to have a native speaker translate it for me. So that's all in the same vein as these features around translation that Microsoft is rolling out. And to your point earlier, Rick, about will it get to be a point where it's real time translation service with two parties on a call? I think with the advent of AI and the absolute compute power that sits behind AI and large language models, I think that's absolutely going to happen one day. It's not quite the same use case, but you've probably seen the commercial. I don't remember if it's Samsung or who it is, but the use case is this person's waiting for their Uber or their Lyft ride, and they're trying to tell the driver where they're at, and they're making the phone call and they're speaking English. And I think the commercial takes place in like Thailand or somewhere in an Eastern Asian country. And then you see it flips over to the driver and you see the driver receives the audio in their native language. Again, that's specific application to Samsung. But my point being is, if Samsung's doing it, you better believe that Microsoft is going to do it.
All right, so here's a pop quiz for you, Hot Shot. And if anyone knows that line from that movie and you post it in the comments, I'm going to send you something, except for Matt Slava. I'm not going to send you anything, Matt, because I still owe you something. But anyway, if you put the actual answer to that line, so I'm Brandon, not Brandon Peace, but pop quiz, Hot Shot. There you go. If you got the answer to that movie quote, that'd be awesome to see that in the comments. Okay, Brandon, pop quiz for you. What services are being utilized in the Microsoft ecosystem to provide the translation transcription services?
Well, that's a good question. I can make some assumptions about where it's being housed and lived, but then again, Microsoft solutions their services the way they want them, right? So it may not be in the same way that I'm going to go create my own solution, right? So there's the whole Power Platform, the whole Power ecosystem. I have access to their AI language models that I can go develop against. I can assume that Microsoft is leveraging those same language models, probably in a similar deployment fashion. But again, I don't work at Microsoft, so I don't know exactly how they're leveraging these services to tie it into
I,
to Microsoft.
I'm going to throw a guess. Here's my guess. You ready? My guess is this. It's cognitive services, right? Cognitive services are a part of it. And then obviously you've got you. I mean, when we talk about the solutions where we're tying in notifications, there's Power Automate included in that, right? So the only reason I asked that question is because part of why organizations want Microsoft Teams, it's the greater ecosystem, right? It's the greater ecosystem that lives, hold on a second. It's the greater ecosystem like this right here. Now, this isn't tell me if I'm sharing my screen, Brandon. Let's see here. Now, this isn't, I'm trying not to make this a plug, but really what I want to show, where's my screen at? Did I lose it? Oh, there you go. Really what I want to show is in the Microsoft ecosystem, right? You've got things like cognitive services, right? And this is, I thought it's cognitive services only because it's the same stuff that provides sentiment analysis in, let's say, Copilot for sales, right? I believe that's cognitive services that are providing that. You've got the Power Platform, right? You've got the Bot Framework, which is the chat sort of Copilot Studio stuff. Azure Communication Services and Power BI. I just thought I'd show why do people choose Microsoft Teams Phone, and it's because you've got all these different services. And Brandon is showing you some of the services that work together and how the system accomplishes the overall sort of solution for organizations. Again, not to be a plug, just plugging the Microsoft phone system and how you tie in all these different services to create a solution. So, okay.
But
we finished that one.
But I know there's this really long delay between us, so it's making it awkward for us to be live streaming. But I was going to say, I want to be clear to the listener that I don't have to go configure cognitive services. We can assume Microsoft is using cognitive services to do this translation, but I want to make sure the listener understands that I don't have to go set anything up for this stuff out of the box to work with the Teams client. Now, if I want to go do custom stuff with cognitive service, yes, I would have to go build my own, application, for whatever I want to do with those services.
Good call out. Good call out. It is. It's stuff that you can start to configure. I mean, you took what was a couple of clicks and slides, and you were ready to go. Yeah.
Yeah. Correct.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. What about let's move into the call detail record stuff. The CDR insight, because statistics become really important in an organization when you talk about productivity gains, when you talk about things like the Forrester total economic impact report, right? They talk about the value of time. They talk about time saving per employee per week, right? And you do those things and you go, okay, that translates into real dollars and cents when it comes to savings. So, how does this, call detail records sort of, support that? Well, you start to be able to pull in, records from, how people are operating, right? How are they operating? Are they operating efficiently? Can you trim time off of this? Can you, adjust business policy to address something? So when you start to see statistics, businesses start to be able to make decisions around those things. Now, Teams has its own sort of statistics, right? When you talk about Teams from an activity perspective and engagement, and everyone probably gets the email saying you did this much in Teams meetings, you did this many emails, you did this much sort of collaboration. So, here's your efficiency score, right? Now you can see some stuff from just calling. So what does that look like, Brandon?
Yeah, I think I'm gonna throw my screen back up, but I think there's a couple different components here, and I'm only gonna probably touch on one of them, but I'm gonna kind of very briefly talk about both of them now. so there's no confusion. There's the one I'm going to talk about around the CDR insights. So that's how, calls are coming in, who's taking calls, what's the quality of the call, what's the duration, what's the statistics on the call. And I think the solve there that Microsoft is kind of pushing out is, there's customers who want long-term data retention, and Microsoft doesn't keep call history for that long, right? So users, or consumers of the phone system, they want the ability and the flexibility to pull down data, store it in their own environment, and create their own analytic dashboards and reports and monitoring triggers based on those CDRs. That's the new one that's just been kind of announced here recently from Microsoft. The other one is the call queue statistics report that's integrated into Power BI that gives more stats around how call queues are performing, how agents within the call queues are performing, and how calls are flowing from, say, PSTN into auto attendant down to call queue and through, and then you can kind of get an idea of abandoned calls and all of that. That's not to say you can't do the same thing with the CDRs. If you're a big data analytics type person who likes to crunch data, you absolutely could probably build all this stuff from this CDR insights that Microsoft has announced. So let me get this up on my screen here. Hopefully it's not too terribly small. And Rick, I can get you the link here if you want to throw it in the LinkedIn chat and up on YouTube. Let's see. Let me get that over to you real quick. Just so you have
Yep.
it.
Real quick, I want to break in, and I know we've got a delay, so it's going to take a second for Brandon to hear that. But what I want to call out here, though, Brandon, is that I posted a comment in the LinkedIn there. Basically, it's 28 days, right? That's the duration that Microsoft holds CDR information today, right? 28 days. So the value of CDR Insight is to then just exactly what you said, take it down, store it, analyze it, and keep it for historical data for yourself, right? For your organization. So that's exactly, so today it's 28 days. If you have call detail record insight, it's however long you want, right?
Yeah, and that, I mean,
All
there's
right.
a number of
I will
reasons
post
why
the link.
there's a number of reasons why you would want to store your data for more than 28 days, right? There's the financial sectors, the healthcare sectors, they might need that, those detail records to correlate to, you know, call logs in their CRM or call recordings that have been offloaded to some other system, and they have compliance requirements where maybe they have to store data for, I know in some sectors it's 10 years that they have to store this kind of data. So there's real world situations where this data is needed. What I will say is, like, in typical Microsoft fashion, they produce this announcement and they put it out there and they show all these great screenshots of, oh man, look, I can see where my calls are happening on a map. I can see how things are performing. I see all these fancy graphs, and they kind of give you this whole design, like, oh, and look at this. And I think somewhere in this article, if you read it, they say something to the effect of, and you don't need to be a super technical person to deploy this. We make it, kind of a no code solution for you. And so, as Rick knows, we've gone out, and by we, not to sound arrogant, I have I've gone out and I've grabbed this source code from Microsoft. I've pulled it down and I tried to follow their instructions. And like typical Microsoft, it's not as easy as they want you to think it is. Now, they may come up with iterations, and I'm only bringing this up not to badmouth this solution, but to say it's more for the intermediate to advanced technical person that understands how to deploy a whole bunch of services together, and then troubleshoot it, because Microsoft gives you kind of the foundation without a lot of details on what's required, and then you've got to go do it. So, as an example, I had to go fork the code. I had to pull the code into my own repository, and I know this is probably foreign language to a lot of people. I had to then configure that code to be customized to my specific environment, and then I had to try to deploy it. And Rick knows right before this podcast I was working on, I was getting kind of frustrated because I was having to actually look at the deployment scripts and troubleshoot them because they weren't working. Long story short, we have it working, but again, it's not as simple as this article. So don't necessarily look at this article and think that these dashboards exist, because they don't. They've created an example to show you what you can do with the data, but they don't provide you with these dashboards. You're going to have to go out. And in this case, what you can see is I have not built the dashboards yet. Again, this is all probably foreign language, but what you can see is if I run my data feed, I can pull, I'm seeing the CDRs, I can get into it. And again, this is why dashboards are so nice, is because you can see there's a lot of data here that means nothing to a lot of people. And so the technical person is going to have to take things and parse them out to build those dashboards. As an example, here's a call came in from this 303 number, again, small on my screen, and it was destined for someone internal to Teams. This, in this case, happens to be, his name's Neil. But again, I now have the data. So now as I progress, I can go build these dashboards like you see on that URL, that example. And now I can choose how long I want to retain that data. And then I can start to report anything and everything I want to know about these calls, anything from audio quality to duration to, was a call missed? Did it end up in voicemail? All of the different things you would want to know about a call.
Well, that is why there are partners out there that can support organizations in their efforts to try to do things that they need to do for their organization. All right, Brandon, I want to rock into next week's episode. Okay, so we've got a couple of episodes that are coming up back to back that are going to be pretty exciting. We're going to dive into the Microsoft Dynamics Contact Center platform, and that is pulling in a ton of, in fact, I'll go to the URL so you can see what the URL is. Let me go find that real quick, because that is, it is pretty interesting. I think I'll pull that in here. I'll post it in the chat. Actually, I'm going to go post in the chat because I didn't have it handy. But I want to show, we're going to talk about that Dynamics Contact Center platform, how it brings in different things like the Nuance IVRs, how it brings in chat for a full-on omni-channel solution tied to your CRM and contact center, all kind of living harmoniously. Brandon, I'm sure it's a lot of what you just described. I think it's complex when you're pulling it together. It's not a out-of-the-box solution, but for organizations that have really complex requirements, right, and workflows, it's never out of the box. And that's it's a solution that's built and organized, and different services are brought in. So I'm excited to have an expert come onto our show. We'll see if it's next week or the week after. Chris Goodwill was supposed to be with us today, and he had an emergency. So good luck to Chris. But we look forward to seeing him on our show and walking through the Microsoft Dynamics Contact Center platform. I'm excited to see how that works, how it comes together, because it's a real heavy duty sort of omni-channel contact center platform. And then we're inviting a couple of Microsoft folks to walk through and talk about this, Brandon. This is news to you even, because I kind of just secured that, an hour ago, right? We've got a friend of ours at Microsoft that's going to come through and explain to us how Copilot lives in a lot of different scenarios, but not just lives in the scenarios. What she's going to go through is she's going to go through real world scenarios and how Copilot is being used today, right? So here's an example of Copilot for sales. How is Copilot for sales being used today? And she's going to show an example of how it's being used. She'll show an example of how Copilot in in GitHub is working from a development perspective to speed up development, right? So all the different co-pilots, not all of them, but we're gonna go through and go, here's Copilot and how it's being used today, and then working on the different personas within. So if I'm an executive, how am I best going to use Copilot? Literally, I've got Copilot assigned to me 3 days ago. What am I doing with it as an executive? Let's just say, right? So she's going to break down how executives can use Copilot and experience the highest level of productivity they can, right? So the different scenarios in the world, how Copilot is being applied, and how it's creating massive productivity, and it's why 60 something percent of the Fortune 500 are already using Copilot. It's part of why Microsoft Teams is sitting at 20 million PSTN users. It's part of why Teams Premium licensing is way up, right? Because there's a lot of components in there that are being used that drive massive productivity for organizations. I'm sure it's part of why Microsoft stock is soaring. So all that, I put that up there. There we go. All that is coming to you in the next 2 weeks on Everything Teams Phone Live. Brandon, any comments?
Yeah, I mean, I think two things, right? On the Copilot piece, there's, you could probably do a whole podcast series on just Copilot as you walked through when you're looking at this diagram on your screen and looking at all the different ways that Copilot is connected. And this is just to kind of the Microsoft ecosystem. That's not even really talking about, going out and connecting Copilot under the hood to, services that are beyond Microsoft, whether it's CRM type integrations or whatever it is you're trying to do. Um, so, I know there's a ton of things I talk to you about every week about Copilot. We're just talking about one earlier today where, from a PSTN, a calling perspective, the way Copilot will assist in how you're communicating with someone that's calling you. Should you need to transfer that call, Copilot can take and summarize that call up to that point, and you can take that data and push it on to the person you're transferring it to. They can get a very quick synopsis and summary of what's going on the call, and it just makes that chat or that call transfer easier when that other agent has the chat, so that the caller doesn't necessarily have to start over with re-explaining why they're calling in the first place. Um, and then I think you said earlier, and I'll reiterate it, that the key is finding the partner who can help you dive into this, and help you understand it in a way that makes sense for your business. Because if you try to go at this alone and you try to understand all of these solutions on your own, it's going to take you a lot longer to get through that barrier to get to where you want to be, versus choosing a partner who's gone through that heartache, who's like me, maybe lost a few hairs and smashed my head against a wall a couple times, but has gone through that pain point for you so that they can help you deliver that solution quicker and get you into your business flow faster.
Well, I was wrong in the way I named it, by the way. It was not Dynamics Contact Center Platform. It is the Digital Contact Center Platform. So the Microsoft Digital Contact Center Platform. This is what Chris is going to come help us with and walk through the phenomenal capabilities that I've seen. There's the link right there. If you poked into that link, you can see all the different components that it brings to fruition. So it's pretty exciting, along with some companies that are using it. Anyway, Brandon, I think that's let me stop sharing there for just a second, and we'll get that off there. And I think that's a wrap for us today, Brandon. We're at the top of the hour. Thank you very much for pulling the digital or the call detail record insight platform together last minute. And then certainly thanks for pulling the transcription translation information together pretty late in the game there. That's a pretty cool service that we can see how it's being used and how it's going to be used in organizations across. So That's it, Brandon. Why don't you sign us out, buddy?
Yeah, I think I'm gonna remind everyone that Sunday is Mother's Day, so make sure you call your mothers if you still have the opportunity to do so, and wish them a happy Mother's Day. And for the rest of us, have a great weekend, and we'll see you on our next episode.
Hey, guys.